Renny Show is brought to you by Johnston Group, Vittorio Rossi, Trans-Canada Brewing, Lou Furlan, Cambrian Credit Union, and Homefield.
Good evening and welcome to another edition of the Kenny and Renny Show. I'm Ken Wheat from Sportsnet and Sportsnet.ca. We have given Sean Reynolds the evening to spend with his lovely wife. They were attending the Kevin Hart show this evening, so I'll be joined by a couple of special guests. I'm not going to go through much of a soliloquy here like my partner likes to do. It was game 82 here at Ball Arena in Denver as the Winnipeg Jets battled and lost 4-2 to the Colorado Avalanche after a late empty net goal from Arturi Lehkonen. The Jets battled pretty hard considering the lineup they had, and virtually nothing was at stake for them, whereas the Avalanche were battling for top spot still in the Central Division. We'll get into that in a moment. And without further ado, here we go. There he is. There he is. There he is. Welcome, Jeff.
That took you about as long as your intro. It took you about as long as your intro to get me in here. Yeah.
Well, yes. I mean, this is not a game that's going to require a whole lot of delving into, but welcome here, Jeff. What were your initial thoughts of the Jets' 82nd regular season game of the season?
Well, Kenny, under tight deadlines as we
Yes.
newspaper guys are, I started scribbling early thinking that this one was going to be a runaway game for the Colorado Avalanche, obviously, given the circumstances around this. The Jets, of course, in a meaningless affair as far as it comes to the standings, sitting out several key players, and not just sitting out several key players, but injecting several players that hadn't played in some time.
Yeah.
So rust I thought was going to be apparent, including David Riddick, which we'll get into his performance and whatever. But he hadn't played since March 14th, so I thought it was going to be a runaway. I mean, Colorado needed both games to clinch the Central Division, but I thought the Jets put up a great fight. I mean, certainly in the first period, I felt like they were hanging on a little bit, like battling through. It didn't look like a lot of chances for either team. And then, of course, the second period comes. Avalanche get the first goal. Second period comes around, and the Jets are leading. And all of a sudden, you're thinking, is this the game one lineup? I kid, obviously, but certainly a valiant effort. That goal on Riddick is that's a real bummer. I mean, I thought overall Riddick played a decent game, but you can't be letting that one in. And but even then, I mean, I thought there was a chance by the Jets, and there was no quit, and I think that's a really good sign for this team. I'm not going to go out there and say the team's amazing depth and whatnot, because I thought Colorado, I mean, they too are missing a lot of firepower in their lineup. Obviously, Cale Makar not playing. Gabriel Landeskog hadn't played really for much of the season, and we got to see him here today talk as he announced that his season was officially over, that he won't be joining his club for the playoffs, which is an unfortunate situation for the Avs captain. But overall, I mean, all things considered, I thought the Jets played a decent game. You've been to this building before several times. It's a tough building to play in, and much like they did in Minnesota, I thought they took the crowd out of it for the most part. And again, given everything that we've talked, everything I just mentioned about the circumstances heading to the game, I think if you're a Jets fan and we're expecting for a bit of an ass kicking here, like I was, I think you got to be a little bit happy with the overall performance despite the loss.
Yeah, no doubt about that. Maybe we were just in the locker room less than half an hour, just around half an hour ago. Anything stand out from our conversations with either Kyle Connor, Brendan Dillon, or Rick Bowness?
Not overly. I mean, besides Rick Bowness talking at a decibel level that was almost unhearable. I mean, I don't think fans really care about that as far as the takeaways. But if you look at, you look at a Kyle Connor, and he said that he has said this in the past. I mean, you asked him about the idea of embracing that 8th seed. I mean, and whether they view themselves as underdogs. I mean, you obviously prefaced it in your question by saying that, it wasn't that long ago, a couple months ago, that they were fighting for first. Now, Rick Bowness certainly said that felt like an eternity ago, so I think that was a little bit more true to him. And it's hard to really dissect Kyle Connor's words because he has said this in the past, even during the struggles. And I'm not going to suggest false confidence here. It's good to have confidence here, but there's absolutely no doubt that the Winnipeg Jets are underdogs heading into the first round. But I like that confidence, and certainly, you look at the point of tonight's game. I mean, no one got injured. I know Kevin Stenlund was a little banged up. I think he with a lower body injury. Nemestikov went into the boards, but he was fine. Rick Bowness said Stenlund should be fine, all good. I mean, we're still kind of curious about Nikolaj Ehlers here. We'll get into that as well, but nothing overly too interesting from the post game stuff. I mean, it's hard to really talk about. When you did at that point in time, we'll find out later tonight who the Jets are playing, but. And especially for a game that, again, it almost seems disrespectful to call it meaningless because, as Brendan Dillon said, agreed with it to a certain degree, but there really is no meaningless games in the NHL. And it kind of takes away from, like I mentioned off the top, was guys that got into the lineup who hadn't been in the lineup and had been out of the lineup for quite some time and didn't really look as rusty as they should. So, as far as the takeaways at the end of the game, I thought, I think they'll be much more interesting over the weekend here as we head into the playoffs early next week.
Yeah, right on. It's your boy Bruce. That A looked really nice on number 5. What were your thoughts quickly on Brendan Dillon and Kyle Connor rocking the A's with Mark Scheifele and Josh Morrissey out of the lineup this evening? Yeah,
no surprise. I mean, when you look at all the key players that were out, I mean, it's kind of an obvious one for Kyle Connor in the sense of, well, who are you going to give it to? A guy who, who was in there that was Kyle Connor's caliber, if you will. And again, not to take away from other players that make less money and score less goals, but, he is considered to be a key player on this team. And, I don't think that Kyle Connor was looking for a letter. Earlier in the season, I don't think he's not, I don't think he's one of those guys. We looked at, other guys who hadn't got a letter. Dillon is one of them for sure. Nikolaj Ehlers another. Brendan Dillon is the obvious choice in my opinion. He's a guy that, like an Adam Lowry, certainly brings a great perspective to the team. Tries hard every game. He's one of those guys that plays with an edge. Plays one of the few guys on this team, I'd argue, that play with an absolute toughness, and even fewer guys that will step up and drop the gloves when needs be. So I thought between the two of them, Brendan Dillon was the obvious choice, and you'd think that if he was maybe signed on for a little bit longer or whatnot. I mean, maybe not too, because he has only been here for 2 years, but he certainly has the respect of his teammates and his coaching staff, and that was just reflective in his designation as an alternate captain tonight.
Yeah, no doubt about that. And Brendan, it's funny, going back to Rick's words about some guys don't need a letter to lead, I think Brendan Dillon is sort of the epitome of that, Jeff. I think he's a guy that is a perfect guy to throw an A on the jersey in a situation like this. I also do think he's the kind of guy you could have an A on his jersey full time, don't get me wrong. Mm-hmm. But he's not a guy who needs a letter to have a voice or a big voice in that room. In terms of Kyle Connor, I think he's kind of emerged as a leader in the last couple of years here. We saw it down the stretch last year. He used his voice a little bit more often, and I think that's nice. It's a nice pull for him. Nikolaj Ehlers would be another guy moving forward that I think that he's a guy that has grown into a leadership role as well. Before we get rolling and welcome our next guest, you should visit the good folks at Vittorio Rossi. Sean's not here, but I have a crisp shirt from the good folks. Go see the boys at Vittorio Rossi on Corden. Tell them Kenny and Renny sent you. If you want to look sharp, go see our crew over there, and we thank them for their support throughout the course of this season. Let's give me 1 second here. We're gonna do our best.
Find the buttons. You gotta find the buttons.
Yeah, we're gonna do our best on the technical difficulties here. Try to keep them to a minimum, but another welcome right here. There he is, Scott Billick.
They love
Winnipeg
it.
Sun.
Oh my
Welcome.
goodness! Welcome,
Yeah.
Scotty.
Yeah, good to see you, Scotty. Thank you for joining us. What's happening back in the peg?
It's nice out, man. I mean, it's less nice than it was yesterday, but it's still nice out. For Winnipeg weather, it's good. So I'm not complaining.
I wasn't asking about the weather.
Well, that's all it is. No, I'm good. Everything's fine back in Winnipeg.
Good,
Yes, I
good.
appreciate it.
Well,
Thank you.
the buffet is open for your thoughts on the game, and then we will shift gears to the mighty Lamplighter.
Yeah, it was. I mean, whatever. I thought the team played well. I mean, you're facing a team an Avalanche team that's still fighting for first place, and it was essentially a 1-goal game. I thought the Jets. This is the last chance for a bunch of those guys that got into the game to put something on tape. Some of these guys are fighting for contracts, for playing time next year. I thought the only issue I had in that game, and I get it, guys can't turn themselves off, and they only play at one speed and all that. The Nemestikov, whatever that was there. I mean, I thought
it's hustle, man. It's hustle. What else is it?
I'm all for the hustle, but when you put yourself out of the game for some time, we didn't know at the time whether or not he would be back or not. That's the only thing that bothers me. Not even.
What do you suggest he does there?
Let him have a breakaway.
And let him have a breakaway.
I just don't think it matters. At that point, you're focused on next week, whatever. Like don't worry. I get why he did it. I understand that guys play at not even one speed, but you played the game to win, and I get that part. But this is a team that whatever. I mean that was my only maybe issue with that game. I didn't think David Riddick was that good. But whatever. He also hasn't played in a month, right? So that's the other part of it too. That's a tough gig for David Riddick to go in. I've seen him getting some hate on Twitter. But I mean, he hasn't played in 14 games, right? Like that's the reality of the situation for David Riddick, and he's coming in against one of the best scoring teams in the NHL. So it is what it is. I didn't have an issue with that, but I thought the Jets played well tonight. All things considered, 5 of their top 6 out of the lineup. I didn't expect the power play to be that great because there wasn't going to be a lot of cohesion on it, right? But they found a way to score a couple goals. The shorthanded goal was nice. So yeah, I mean, it was a good, well-fought game from a team that wasn't really given a whole lot of chance going into it, I think.
There you go. Fair point. Jeff, let's start with you as we go around the horn for the Lamplighter this evening.
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to look at Kevin Stenlund as, if we're going to go with the Jets angle here, clearly that, if we're the Avs goal against Riddick, that the Evan Rodriguez goal would probably be the decision maker there. But let's go Winnipeg here for the last regular season game. Kevin Stenlund, I think it was you, Kenny. Were you not saying it? I think your quote exactly was, it took 5 steps for Nathan McKinnon to catch up to him.
And then he didn't check him. And then
he tucks one past Gorgiev. So I thought, that one certainly looked good. I mean, credit to Morgan Barron, who I think I gave the Lamplighter to Mason Appleton the other night. And I ignored the work that Morgan Barron had did on that goal.
Fair.
I'm not going to ignore the work that Morgan Barron did on this goal to send over him and to do it, on a shorthanded. I mean, that was a special goal. And I mean, we've been looking at Kevin Stenlund, wondering if this guy, if the fourth line could provide offense. Like, granted, this wasn't the fourth line, obviously, but he's on the fourth line, and the Jets will need that scoring touch for him to get that goal. To inject some of that confidence of scoring, I think will be important, and certainly will be crucial that the depth scoring is there come playoffs. As we know, goals are hard to come by in the postseason, and having a guy like Morgan Barron and Kevin Stenlund connect, 2 guys that will make up parts of that fourth line, I think was important tonight in an otherwise meaningless affair.
Scotty, how about for you?
I mean, the nicest goal tonight, in my opinion, was the Renny goal. I mean, that's just a beautiful, beautiful shot. So I mean, and so I guess if we're, to be fair, I thought Axel Johnson,
the prettiest goal.
Was nice. It was the prettiest goal. I mean,
and that's why it's there to be named.
And so I mean, it's the game. What is that? The game tying goal, I believe, because Rodriguez was the game winner. So I like that goal. I thought it was nice. I mean, it's a power play goal. But I like the Fjallby goal too. I thought he showed his hustle. I mean, that's what Fjallby does, and he got a stick on it this time, right? I mean, that's one of the things that we've always that maybe the knock against Axel is that he does all the things you'd want a speedy forward to do, except score, right? Get a stick on the puck in those moments where oftentimes he kind of maybe flubs it or something like that, or just doesn't get his stick there. He almost overskates his opportunities at times. And so I like the Johnson Fjallby goal too. I mean, it was a tap in, I get it, but he was where you want him to be to get that tap in. And so that was a nice goal. But I mean, if I'm going to Lamplighter tonight, it's Mikko Rantanen. It's just, that goal's just so you watch the replay, it's just so slick. It's so smooth. I mean, it's almost like a golf swing what he did. I don't know if you've seen one of the replays there, but I mean, that's
like a half slap shot, half snap shot.
We didn't need the replay. It happened right in front of us.
No,
here.
I know, but like, I mean, you see the different angle, like the behind angle. Like I know where you guys sit in Colorado because I've been there a few times, and so, but it's just it just looked like a perfect golf swing. That's what it looked like. It was a beautiful goal. So let's go with Mikko Rantanen tonight.
The Fjallby goal, though, man. You say tap in. That was from a kick up from the skate to the stick for a guy who hadn't played.
Did it go from the skate?
Yeah, buddy. Yeah.
He took the pass in his skate, put it up to his stick, and turned into a tap in for a backhanded. But he hadn't played since March 4th. To have that touch by the crease, that was a nice goal.
Right. I mean, that's the same thing with Riddick, right? I mean, I think guys who have he hasn't played since March 4th. You're right. I mean, that's why I named him. But I mean, for just a pure good-looking goal, Mikko Rantanen's was as smooth as they come. So
yeah, there you go. And Jeff touched on it. I'm going with Johnson Fjallby for. I also like the Stenlund goal, but for me, the fact that it was a point shot from. I mean, there is an element of luck involved. The shot comes from the right point. It hits him in the skate, but he goes skate to stick, and then still has to tuck it. Right, Jeff? That was the thing that we were a little bit surprised by. It wasn't like it was just an empty net that he tapped. He had to kind of go around Georgiev's pad. So. We've got all of the prettiest of the goals covered, and that's why we have chosen those as our Lamplighter, sponsored by the great folks at Trans-Canada Brewing Company. You can head down to their tap room at 1290 Kenniston Avenue, and if you can't wait for your opportunity, please share your Lamplighter with us, and we will choose a winner. And if you can't wait, go down to their tap room and test out the Lamplighter or many of their other excellent beers. And before we shift gears for the Johnson Group, we've got you covered. The winner of the Lamplighter from last game is Mary Jane, who chose Adam Lowry's goal as her Lamplighter. Mary Jane, please send me a DM at Weeb's World with your full name and your email address, and we will be sure to get you the voucher for a ice cold 8-pack of Lamplighter. And for those folks who have already signed up for the list for the, as Sean has been calling it, the Kenny and Renny year-ender bender, thank you for your support already on that. We will be looking at the second Tuesday after the Jets season will end. So now that the playoffs will start either Monday or more likely Tuesday on the road in either Edmonton or Vegas, we'll have a little closer idea, but we'll see how long the run lasts, and we'll dig into that a little bit here. And for the folks who are watching live, 1-1 currently between the Vegas Golden Knights and Seattle Kraken. Vegas needs 1 point out of that game to secure first place in the West. Otherwise, it will be the Jets and Edmonton Oilers in a North Division rematch after that sweep. Scotty, let's start with you on the Johnston Group. We've got you covered. Play of the game.
Oops. Oh, that's a good question. Man, that's a really good question. I like the penalty shot save from Dave Riddick. I mean, it's hard. It's hard to
nothing wrong with that. That's a good
hard
one.
To give you a gotcha covered in a game that they lost, I suppose. But I did like the penalty shot save on Riddick. I mean, again, granted, he hasn't played in about a month now. So I like that. I mean, I like that he stuck with it. Lars Eller, I don't know what you'd say. I don't know what his penalty shot or even his shootout kind of acumen's like, but I thought the save was good, and it kept the Jets in the game at the time, right? And it bailed out Nemestikov. It's a great play. Don't get me wrong. It's a mean nothing game, guys. Like, whatever. You don't want to injure yourself. I mean, that's the whole point. That's the whole reason why you're resting your stars right now.
He has no way of knowing he's going to crash into the post. That play is a smart play. Scotty, the next time the Jets are in a game, he would have to do that on a breakaway.
I agree. Yeah, 100%.
So that's why he did it.
Yeah, I totally agree. Just in game 82, I don't know if he needed to do it. But got you covered. Him bailing out Nemestikov on that.
Did you bail on your gamer tonight, Scotty? Because it's game 82.
We actually did. Yeah, we kind of wrote something different because it didn't really matter that much.
You said, you know what? Don't worry about it. The page will fill themselves.
Anyways, David Renny.
There you go. Good choice, Jeff. How about you?
I'm giving the you got you covered to Rick Bonus.
Oh,
decided
there you
to sit
go.
a lot of his key players.
Yeah, because he didn't want to get injured.
This game was, so he wasn't going to let his guys go. But I'm going to make a second plan here, and that's going to be the guys that opted to play
1B,
82 games because they wanted to. I thought it was surprising that Kyle Connor.
Yeah, thanks for stealing mine, Jeff.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot.
You
already had it covered. You already had it covered. What else do I have covered in a game like this?
You know what? Don't worry about it. Just pretend like the last few seconds didn't even happen, and go ahead, man. Take it because I thought that was it.
We'll be looking for the editing button, and I'll just pick up where you left off. I agree totally. There were certain players, and to your point, it sounds like certain players were given the option to take the day off, whereas when I asked Kyle Connor why it was important to him, he said, well, Rick Bonus texted him and said, it looks like you're playing all 82 games.
Yeah, exactly. He was just like, okay.
And, for him, he had already done it once before, but it is a badge of honor, for Kyle Connor, for Adam Lowry, for Neil Pionk, for Brendan Dillon. It is something. Jeff, Adam told you and I this morning what it meant to him, and kind of gave him an easy out, and he's like, I've done it 2 times in 9 years. That's why I'm doing it. The guys, especially the guys that play a physical brand of hockey and play as hard as they do in terms of their putting their bodies on the line with the body checks and block shots and all of those things, it's tough to do. So I'm going to go with that as we've got you covered. And Scotty, just wait 1 second and I will bring you right back. And that is we've got you covered plays and players of the game, brought to you by the OGs, the good folks, the great folks at the Johnston Group. And we thank them for their support. They were the original sponsor of the Kenny and Renny podcast, and they have stuck with us. And we look forward to them sticking with us throughout this playoff run for the Winnipeg Jets as long as it lasts. Okay, where do we want to go next? We've got plenty of time here. Let's get Scotty back in here. Jeff, you mentioned Ehlers off the top. What's your take on where things stand with Nikolaj Ehlers?
I think you and me differ a little bit. We saw him yesterday at the Rockies game. We saw him later on that evening. We saw him today. From what we know through Rick Bonus's early morning skate presser was that he was in concussion protocol and cleared. So that tells me that, in that kind of situation, when you get blindsided like that and you're automatically going to be in concussion protocol. I don't think wasn't like he went back to the dressing room and had a pounding headache and now they put him in. I think you just go through that, and that seems like he cleared. He might have a lingering upper body injury, I think your point, maybe a sternum, stuff like that. He got him straight in the chest, but I don't know. I think he was never going to play anyways. So it's confusing, but at the same, and by confusing, because Rick Bonus then says he's being reassessed tomorrow, right? But I just have this feeling that if it was a playoff game, even tonight, he's playing.
Agreed.
And so while he's not technically a healthy scratch, if you will, like the other guys, he might be a little bit banged up. I think, push comes to shove, he plays tonight, and he certainly plays game 1 next week. So, I guess I would classify that as a close call, all things considered. It could be worse. He could have got a concussion. We know it doesn't matter if you take one to the head. You can get that whiplash and hits exactly like the one we saw Ryan Hartman deliver to him in that game. But all in all, he wasn't going to be a player tonight, and therefore I'm just a little I guess I'm if anything, I'm easing fans' concerns in that I think this guy will be ready to go early next week. Whether he's 100%, I don't think anyone's 100% after 82 games. But certainly, I don't see it. That hit being a lingering issue and him missing it anytime.
Yeah, I see it as nothing burger might be too harsh a term, but I think that if this game mattered, if the Jets needed to win to get in to the play.
Choking up.
Let's try that again here. Sorry.
It's an emotional show, man. It's the end of the season.
I know. Yeah, hosting.
You grinded all year, Teddy. Shows like this, writing, TV hits for Sportsnet. You need to take a moment to yourself right now. Go ahead, man.
I only have one water, and it's 3/4 finished. Saw Ehlers in the hallway again today. And just one quick thing, and we know that the power of social media can occasionally be somewhat ridiculous. And I am
you're
going
the nicest guy in the world, so you answer every single person.
It's true.
No, so here's the conspiracy theory that Nikolaj Ehlers was somehow injured and needed help taking off his jersey in the background of the celebratory video that was played. This is what we know. We've seen Nikolaj Ehlers several times over the last 2 days from a distance, and I saw him up close in the hallway this evening. There is no arm in a sling. There is no one arm hanging low like Andrew Cogliano's left shoulder was hanging low after he unfortunately toe-picked and went flying into the end boards. So, Scotty, that's my other point. Cogliano was just making a regular hockey play, and he caught an edge, so you can get injured at any time, even whether it's effort or not.
I'm half kidding. So
no, and I get that, and I'm not trying to harp on that. So I don't see a conspiracy theory with Nikolaj Ehlers. I see him being fully ready for Game 1, and like Jeff, I think he would have played today if this game had a little bit more meaning attached to it. This is playoff mode for sure.
They're not going to see anything.
No, but see, Scotty, the point that Jeff and I are making is that if there's nothing, just say there's no benefit. Why? Do you think hang on. I'll go and then you go.
Okay.
Sure.
Thanks, Dad. Yeah.
No, just wait a second. So if it's nothing and like we think it is, why does he need to be? Why does there need to be another doctor's appointment to be reassessed?
You want to put on the
How do you know that means a doctor's appointment? Maybe it's just like he said, he's feeling good today. What if he wakes up tomorrow? Yeah, I'm still feeling good. What if it's still a concussion potentially?
Yeah, and that's the other thing. He's out of protocol, right?
He is out of protocol. I asked Rick about it. He would have had to have been looked. Yeah. He would have got looked at right after he came off the ice after the hit. And let's pass on that. Quick thoughts on the suspension, Scotty. You first.
Yeah, I mean, one game is what it is. I mean, I thought the Reeves hit is, I think, the more dangerous hit of those two. I mean, I get the open ice hit can be bad, but I mean, just the way that Reeves, who's like 240 pounds or however big he is, crushes a smaller guy like Dylan DeMello like that. I thought that was more deserving of a suspension. But one game is what I thought he'd get. You don't play in the last game of the regular season. They were never suspending him for 2 games, right? Like they're not making him miss a playoff game. That's just not how it goes. So, I expected one game, and he got one game, and go from there.
Jeff, one enough?
Yeah, well, man, I will. If you recall last show, I mean, I thought it was a cheap hit. I didn't think it was going to be a suspension. I thought it was a cheap hit in the sense that he took advantage of the moment. But at the same time, I mean, if you look at the post-game comments from the Wild, and I mean, mind you, they're not exactly the most objective group here to take from. But I mean, you had, Nikolaj Ehlers running around in the offensive zone and throwing checks and so I thought, while I'm certainly not disagreeing with the suspension. I didn't think it was going to be one. But I'm kind of with Scotty in the sense that, that one gamer is almost a throwaway for the last regular season, right? To me, it's kind of a nothing. And I go back, the fact that he got an interference call, I think was the right call. And while I think it adds a little bit of intrigue because Ehlers is hurt, if he just gets up there, it's nothing. I don't even know if he's suspended because I think in these processes, they figure out what the deal is with the other player. So in that respect, I think it's fair. I find it a bit unexpected.
Right on. And Crystal, I didn't mean you when I was talking about people with conspiracy theories. I understand there was a video that in the background it shows people helping Ehlers with his jersey. That is not directed at you. I got a couple other.
And Kenny, we were talking about Lowry. We talked to Lowry today about his fight with Reeves and why.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of people
Let's dig into that right now.
Why was he? Why would you do that with 30 seconds left? And I mean, I think now Adam did talk about. You did throw out words like stupidity kind of thing.
It was hilarious.
But at the same time, that is who Adam Lowry is, and very much like Nemestikov on that play, you don't just change who you are in the heat of battle, and especially, and I see some comments here. About
I'm wrong,
Apple,
guys. I get it.
That's exactly. Sorry, Scotty. That's exactly, like when I think that was it for Adam. Like, he said that Reeves went over to Mason Appleton and said, "We're going," and for him to watch that, he's like, no chance. I mean, we know how important Mason Appleton is for Adam Lowry and to Adam Lowry as a good buddy of his, right? I mean, I asked him today about his composure. And how he always stays, even keeled. I mean, we've seen a lot of guys on this team ride the wave of emotion, feeling too good about themselves when things are going well and feeling too bad about themselves when things aren't going as well. And Adam, at least from our perception, is that he just has this even keel, mentality perspective. And I mean, he said today, he goes, well, yeah, I mean, I'm glad you guys see that, but, I lean on guys like Mason Appleton, who when each of us get too low, we have the other one propping each other up. So obviously they're close friends. So to see a guy like Ryan Reeves try to fight Mason Appleton, who's gone through injuries this year and would much, a greater likelihood of being injured in such a fight, I think that was a no-brainer for him. And certainly, again, just speaks to the player that he is, the person that he is, and most importantly, the temeammate that he is. And I think he's just happy that he got out of that one, relatively unscathed and didn't throw his shoulder out or didn't, take a good one from Ryan Reeves, who clearly wanted, something to go down there. And I think, we already talked about this in mini, but, I think the ref should have probably got into that one if they're going to be if they're claiming to take more onus on players' health and whatnot.
Yeah,
so
no kidding.
overall, I thought that was a good chat with Adam. But
for sure.
I mean, from that takeaway, I think he was just doing what Adam Lowry does.
Yeah, and this is the other thing. If you're wired a certain way, you are going to stand up. Jeff, you and I in that situation say, well, if Reeves tackles Lowry and he separates his shoulder, that's a bad trade for the Winnipeg Jets. If you're Adam Lowry and you see the toughest guy in the league go to your buddy and line mate and say, we're going, you're like, no, we're not going. You're not going. You're going with me. Yeah. That's who you're going with. So, that's just the way that Adam is wired, and it's part of why he's such a great leader. Not just because he takes the fight, but because he doesn't need to be asked and he doesn't need to be told. That's an internal situation where he knows what his job is, and part of his job is standing up for his teammates. That doesn't mean he always has to take the fight. But the best part of that whole exchange, Jeff, was it the smartest thing I've ever done? No. Do I regret it? No. Would I do it again? Yes. So it was a very easy sequence of events. Now, that also, sorry, I'm going to let you go in a second, Scotty, and the beauty of that was now Rick Bonus, he had some laughs at the morning exchange with us too, Jeff. Yeah. And I said, do you think the players enjoyed your exchange with Dean Evison? Oh, I don't know about that.
Yeah, they loved it.
The thing I remember most about the exchange was Jeff laughing in the background. You could hear him. It was loud. It was good.
Could you? Oh, yeah. It was hilarious. You have this guy who's, he's clearly dealing with something. He's tired, and for him to, for a guy who absolutely loves players to play with emotion, for him to do that and have signs like small man syndrome and stuff, as if like Dean Evason would feed him his lunch if it was a one-on-one. Like, I thought that was amazing. Like, and I thought that was indicative of the entire game and really speaks to why Adam Lowry did that. I mean, you don't want that kind of stuff. Like, if you look at the videos post-game after that game, that team is fired up, and I'm not saying they wouldn't have been fired up from clinching the playoffs had that not all went down, but it was an extra moment, and I think that momentum's important. That sticking up for one another, camaraderie, if you will, whatever you want to call it, is important. And so when you have the coach involved, I mean, that just made it extra funny. And obviously Rick Bowness, and he said it today, he didn't appreciate the fact that they have 4 guys on the penalty kill, and Ryan Reeves is on there in 3-1
on the power
game.
play.
It's like drop the puck and end the game. Like, it's not it's not going anywhere. So he certainly didn't appreciate it, and he certainly wouldn't have appreciated it if Adam Lowry got hurt over those antics. So I think for him, he just he knows how important Adam Lowry's been in the resurgence here over the last couple months. I asked him about that today too. So I think all those things combined, and the fact that he loves his players to show emotion, was the perfect storm for Rick Bowness to lose his mind. And I thought it was awesome.
Yeah, and here's the other part. So, we've been debating, some of us have been wondering, we know this year has been very taxing physically and probably mentally on Rick Bowness. If folks are curious about Rick Bowness' level of investment about maybe returning to the Winnipeg Jets next season, we know he's under contract. Well, I think you got your answer pretty clearly in terms of that exchange with Dean Evason in game 81 when the game was well in hand. So, Scotty, what first thought about the fight, and maybe you thought on the Bowness Evason exchange as well? Because I know you love the Belichickian shoulder shrug from Dean Evason.
That was the best. I mean, so yeah, like I get Rick Bowness, but like Dean Evason just like cold staring him in the face and just like, and then come over. Like, I mean, that's that's one of the best reactions I've ever seen to somebody being called out. And like, I don't know how well Rick Bowness can fight, but I'd be worried about the guy who just shoulder shrugs and waves you over, right? Like in anywhere else other than when you have a piece of plexiglass in between. So maybe I've heard some people say, well, you had a plexiglass and that whatever. I think Dean Evason takes that fight all day. But yeah, I thought that was hilarious. I've watched that so many times. The fight itself, this is why Adam Lowry's captain material, right? I mean, it'd be a very tough choice between Josh Morrissey and Adam Lowry. But just and I don't know who I pick, but I mean, I'm a big fan of Adam Lowry. Like he's a great person. He gives it everything on every single shift that he's out there. Like, I mean, he embodies what fans want in this team. Obviously, he doesn't have the scoring skill of a Kyle Connor or Mark Scheifele or whatever, but he has all the leadership to let's say make up for it or whatever. And so, yeah, I mean, this isn't the first time that he fought him. We all remember the first heavyweight bout in Vegas after the Jets got shelled the night before in San Jose.
Yep.
And then Adam Lowry goes out there and
shelled, but won the game.
Sure. Yes, I understand. Yeah. But he goes out there and tries to create some energy for his team. I think that fight happened in the first period, if I recall correctly on that one. It was totally let's go, let's try and get some energy after getting under siege the night before, because that was a back-to-back game. Interesting thing about the fight, I love the way that Ryan Reeves grabbed. Like, if you watch the fight, I mean, I'm a big UFC guy. You watch the way that Ryan Reeves grabs Lowry's shoulder, like the Jersey Bajola's shoulder, to neutralize his right arm right off the bat, so Ryan Reeves can get set and get his, because he's already got his arm free, and you see it right off the bat where Ryan Reeves is throwing a lot of punches with right, and there's Lowry's trying to throw a couple of left-handed jabs. That's totally a veteran, like a good fight. Like, not, you wouldn't see that in UFC, obviously, but like a veteran fighter in hockey, and a smart one, neutralizes the guy's biggest weapon, and he held that jersey for as long as he could and got a few in before Lowry's able to break free. So I thought that was, like, the interesting, like the fight within the fight, where you're trying to jockey for position and keep a guy from being able to punch you. I thought that was maybe the most interesting thing, other than the moment of the fight and all that. So,
well, yeah, and Jeff, Adam told us about that. Like, he legitimate was like, oh boy, I lost my balance, and now you're like, when you lose your balance against the strongest guy in the NHL, Now it's very, I'm not a guy who fought a lot when I played. I know, Jeff, you like to throw down. Here's the thing. If you lose your balance in a fight, now you are vulnerable. But here's the problem. The more you got to be careful, because if you try to overcorrect, now you're either getting smoked in the nose or you're in an even more vulnerable position. So the fact that Adam kept his composure when Reeves had him in a bit of a vulnerable position and actually kind of recalibrated and then got the takedown.
He steadied himself, right?
Yeah,
so,
which
is part of it.
It's easy to say. It's easy to say, but a whole lot harder to do. What did you think his response to that, Jeff, this morning?
Sorry, what was his response to
just how Adam talked about that and how he was like, he said he had to steady himself. And then also, secondly, the fact that he felt that both fights were basically draws. And especially yesterday's, because not a lot of punches were actually landed, even though a couple of big bombs were thrown.
I'd say a draw against Ryan Reeves is a win.
No doubt.
So certainly, I mean, Ryan Reeves isn't just a fighter. He has an element to his game now, but he's more of a fighter than he is a hockey player. And he's incredibly strong, tough guy. So to be in those vulnerable positions, I think it shows just how tough Adam Lowry is, how strong he is, and how powerful adrenaline is. Anyone who's ever dropped the gloves, it's a blur. That's why you get incredibly tired after about 5 seconds of throwing fists, because your blood is rushing, so fast, and you're not thinking at all. Hence why you drop the gloves. And as soon as so I put it to that for sure. I mean, you could just say so many good things about Adam Lowry. We went into, and people didn't love the conversation, but I liked it last time about who's going to be the captain. Let's not get into it. I feel like we're going backwards a little bit. Maybe we should move towards the playoffs, but certainly you're going to need that in the playoffs. You're going to need that, that fire. You're going to need that passion. You're going to need that emotion, and nobody embodies it better than Adam Lowry on this team for sure.
Yeah, right.
I'll just add one thing on I think we're selling Lowry a little bit short here. I think
I
Adam
just said
Lowry,
he was everything right there.
No. I meant just to say his fighting skill. I think Adam Lowry goes toe to toe with anybody.
Oh, nobody said it was he was a bad fighter. He's a good fighter.
No. I'm just saying, even a draw. I think Adam Lowry goes into that fight expecting to win that fight, and not because that. I think he knows he can win that fight. I look at Adam Lowry. He's 6'5". He has reach. He does have size and a bit of pounds on Ryan Reeves. I think I think there's no issue with that. I just don't think it's, he thinks a draw is a win or whatever, right? So
no, I was more against the toughest guy in the NHL.
Sure,
it's not a win for Lowry. It's a win for anybody who fights him. You know what I mean?
Sure, yeah. I think I would put Adam Lowry on the same pedestal as Ryan Reeves for fighting skill. That's all I'm saying. So. Yeah,
Adam is a heavyweight, and Ryan I would classify as a super heavyweight. He's in a different weight class. Not in terms of technical skills.
Fights, man, and I think that's a good fight for both those two. I think they're pretty even. That's all. So, anyways, let's move on.
That's why Adam said it was 2 draws, I guess. Quick one for folks who have realty needs that need to be met. You can contact our main man, Lou Furlan, whether you're buying, whether you're selling, whether you're just curious about what the house on the corner of the street is worth, or if you're looking to move to another neighborhood. Lou's your guy. You can reach him at 204-791-9971 or at the office, 204-989-5000. His email is lou at loufurlan.ca. That's LOU at LOUFURLAN.ca. And his website with all of his listings, www.loufurlan.ca. Lou Furlan, excellent realtor, excellent human being, and excellent supporter of the community, including this podcast, for which we are eternally grateful. And guys, before we shift gears to the final 15-minute block here. Okay, there's your update.
Seattle on the power play now. It's been a penalty fest.
Who do you think will win a fight?
Here, hang on a second. Hang on. One more read here, boys. Sorry. We got to also thank our sponsors, the great folks at Cambrian Credit Union. You know that if you're a fan of the show or listen to the show, you know that both Sean and I are Cambrian members, proud Cambrian members. We both have our mortgage at Cambrian Credit Union, and Sean had to actually switch his mortgage over to Cambrian, and he has been thrilled since, because of the fantastic service he has received. Cambrian Credit Union's cashback mortgage is back. Get pre-approved for a Cambrian mortgage by May 31st and qualify for up to $3,500 dollars cash back. Apply, book, and meet online. Visit cambrian.mb.ca/cashback for details. Subject to credit approval. Conditions apply. And thank you once again to the good folks at Cambrian Credit Union for your support throughout the course of this season. Okay, 15 minutes. Let's look forward. We will know the opponent probably not by the time the show is over. Actually, not by the time the show is over. But what do we make of the Jets as an 8th seed? What are their chances? Well, hang on. Let's go this way. What is the more favorable matchup? Jeff, let's start with you.
It's funny, right? Because if you look at the season results, the Jets got 1 point in 3 games against the Vegas Golden Knights this season, and got 2 wins out of 3 games against the Oilers this year.
Right.
But there's absolutely no way I'm looking at the records this season and thinking that the Winnipeg Jets are in an ideal situation playing against Edmonton. And that's because Edmonton's been one of the best teams, if not the best teams in the second half. Their records shows that. They're second in the league, I think, behind Boston for regulation wins. They got every piece that you need, including goaltending, a strong bit of defense. I mean, getting Ekholm at the deadline was massive. And as you mentioned at the Rockies game yesterday, Kenny, that changed the makeup of their team.
Oh, yeah.
And obviously the scoring power. I mean, how do you mention anyone's name before Connor McDavid? And while the Jets certainly were able to shut down Connor McDavid in that 4-game sweep a few years back, that's not going to be the case, I don't think, this year, and will certainly be in tough. And we talked about this before, so I'm back on to stealing your stuff, Kenny.
It's borrowing in this case. It's borrowing,
right?
not stealing.
Laurent Brossoit is going to be the starting goalie for the Vegas Golden Knights,
Incredible.
likely. So there's a beatable netminder in Vegas, and I think certainly that's the key position here is goaltending. So I think the Jets are going to be in tough either way. I don't see them as a favorite in either one of those matchups. But if they're going to steal games and rely on their offense, I would think that Vegas would be the ideal team to be playing against at this point in time.
Scotty, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, I've been thinking about this for the last couple of days. I still don't know who's the favorite matchup. I think there's enough players still on this team from 2 years ago that remember how to shut down McDavid and Draisaitl, because that's what they did. But at the same time, Edmonton's, as Jeff said, I mean, and they're a different team now, right? One, they can not only play defense, but they can score. They got some good, scoring from there with. And they have goaltending now, right? Like when Mike Smith was, pretty good in that series. Like Stuart Skinner's been a game changer, I think, for that team just as much as Ekholm has, because the one thing that team hasn't had is steady goaltending, and that's what they have now in Skinner. And so that like you look at them, they remind me a little bit of the Colorado Avalanche in that way, whereas they just needed something steady in between the pipes to get them, because they had all the offensive talent and they had the defense too, and so
they needed more than just goaltending. Their team defense has improved under Jay Woodcroft, but they still needed Ekholm in order to get to this point.
Sure, but my point is, they have, if you can deal with it in your own zone, which they can now. I think that's what this team was missing, and it's the same thing with Colorado in that sense. I mean, in broad strokes here, Kenny. Don't take offense, but broad strokes. That's all.
Buddy, I was at the Western Conference Final.
Know you were, and that's why I'm saying
their team defense still needed work, and it just wasn't Mike Smith's problem, is what I'm telling you.
Anyways, my point is that I think Edmonton's a much tougher matchup this time than it was 2 years ago. For the people saying, "Oh, it is what it is," and they beat the Oilers before. Exactly, right? Like I think they're that good, right? And so and Vegas, I sort of agree with Jeff. I mean, I'm watching the game as we're going here. Brossoit's been incredible tonight. But this is why it's tough, because I think you get a better Brossoit playing against the Jets because there's something to prove for him there. I'm just not sure if this team. The problem I have with Vegas is I'm just not sure they're the playoff ready, like Stanley Cup winning team yet. They have a lot of stars, they have, And if Theodore and Mark Stone are going to be back, I mean, my goodness, I mean, the team gets better. But I just think the Jets, I think there's a lot of guys left over from the Jets that want some revenge from the Western Final 5 years ago. I mean, it's been a while, but this core is still here. They all played in that. Those guys. I think there's something that Winnipeg wants to prove against Vegas, right? And I think, being the underdog, nobody's really going to pick the Jets to win either series, I don't think. I think the Jets are in the same sort of position they were 2 years ago. So it's kind of a perfect mix where they want to prove it, and they're going to think that the world's against them again, as they did when it was against Edmonton, right? I don't think any of us picked the Edmonton to win that, or to the Jets to beat the Edmonton. Never mind sweep them. Okay, sure.
I didn't say they were going to sweep them. You should check the receipts.
I will check the receipts.
Please do.
But yeah, no, like I just think
I think the Jets win the Stanley Cup that year.
No, sir.
Okay. Yeah, but yeah, no. For me, I mean, I think I'm with Jeff. I think Vegas is probably the slightly more favorable matchup, but it's going to be tough either way. So once we get into, I think there's a path for the Jets to get out of the first round, though. But I imagine we're going to get into what we think, so I'll wait.
Not that and I'm not trying to be like crazy, but it's interesting, right, about Brossoit's connection to Winnipeg, right? Like, yeah. I'm sure he'd want to, win. Of course, he'd want to win. I don't know if he's got much to prove here. I mean, like, the Jets resurrected his career. I mean, he was kind of, dead in Edmonton and came here, and I mean, the opportunities, Kenny, the opportunities in Winnipeg, with Connor Hellebuck as the starter, were limited. I mean, his opportunity to go to Vegas, but yeah, I mean, I'm not to get away from the opponents. We get back to that, but I keep thinking how important it is for not just the city, because I know it's going to be incredibly important for fans. The fans deserve a whiteout party. They deserve something to cheer for, right? They deserve fun. Honestly, after the pandemic, after what we've seen from this team, the roller coaster of this season, the nightmare that was last year. But I think this will be the best sales pitch for some of the players here. Because I think, it's been so long since they saw that kind of passion, saw the fan base, and Winnipeg's second to none, I'd argue, with fan bases. I mean, not only are they knowledgeable, they're passionate. Those parties are awesome. And I think it's going to be a really great thing. Not just for the city, not just for the fans, but for some of these players who, especially for those who've never witnessed it before, but even for those who haven't, to get a reminder about what it's like to play in a hockey mad market. And that's coming. The whiteout's coming, and I just can't wait for game 3 in Winnipeg.
Yeah, and I'll just dive into a couple of things quickly here. The only thing with the Oilers is Stuart Skinner's had an unbelievable year. Scotty, you're bang on, and he's going to be on a lot of Calder ballots. He's going to be on a lot of all-rookie team ballots. But he also hasn't done it when the chips have been down, and that's not his fault. He hasn't really had an opportunity. 100%. But you only get the opportunity when the opportunity comes. And that's the beauty of Brossoit. Jeff, you're right about Brossoit, but that's what makes the matchup so juicy. You have the guy who was clearly in the shadow of Hellebuck, who basically had been... He even said it out loud. I think I can be a starting goalie in the NHL. And then he signed somewhere and didn't really get the starting opportunity he was hoping for. And now all of a sudden, it didn't fall in his lap. This guy had hip surgery in the summertime, and now he's stolen the job, even though Vegas had an all-star goalie in Logan Thompson who got hurt, and then their insurance policy is a 2-time Stanley Cup winner. But now who has the net when the Vegas Golden Knights are playing for first place? None other than Laurent Brossoit. So it's an incredibly juicy matchup. I mean, and also too, we know they had a great relationship with Hellebuck and Brossoit, but let's not kid ourselves.
But the rivalry's there.
When you're the backup, what would you rather do than try to knock? I wouldn't call him a mentor, but the guy that you work closest to for years. Of course, you want to try and beat him. So the other thing quickly too about Vegas, they're battle tested, and in a lot of ways, they're a parallel to the Jets. Last year, Vegas had massive expectations, had humongous injuries, and missed the playoffs. How did they respond? By being one of the best teams in the National Hockey League, even though they still had a bunch of injuries this year. This is Eichel's first crack at an NHL playoff series. He's going to be fired up, and he's played great against the Jets this year, including his overtime winner that he went bar down on. So I think that the Vegas Golden Knights, it's funny. The external expectations on Vegas were much lower this year, much like the Jets. But I think Vegas's team is built for the playoffs. So
Vegas is also a tough building to play in.
Oh, it's an amazing building.
So
never mind the building, this city. Is the Vegas flu real in the playoffs?
Just the atmosphere in that arena is incredible.
Oh yeah,
yes. I don't know if it matches in Edmonton.
I mean,
you're right.
Yeah, I mean, Edmonton is very hungry. That's a great barn too when it's full. When McDavid scored in the first 25 seconds of Game 3, it was bananas in there too, Jeff. Like very similar to Colorado. But then Evander Kane took the 5-minute major on Kadri like a shift or two later, and that was the end of the series basically. So you had the best player in the world has a great shift in the first shift, and then power play happens and there's no momentum. McDavid doesn't really play other than one penalty kill shift, and it completely changed. So anyway, I think it's going to be either series is going to be fantastic and will have its own storylines. And to be honest, is there a preferred matchup? No, but Jeff, Brendan Dillon said it best. The Jets, it doesn't matter if they think they're an underdog or not, and we know Kyle Connor doesn't think they are. Like, they're in the Pacific Division now. Yeah. So you're going to have to beat either Vegas or Edmonton. And then in the second round, you're going to have to probably beat Vegas or Edmonton or LA.
Right.
And then if you happen to win 2 rounds, oh, guess what? Guess who's waiting for you? Either the Stanley Cup champion Colorado Avalanche, the Dallas Stars, or the Minnesota Wild.
Hey, basically. Kenny, it could be worse.
Or Seattle.
You could be in the East.
Oh, you could be in the Atlantic. You could be in the Atlantic Division. Yeah, you could be in the Atlantic Division.
You could be playing Tampa first round. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Anyways, I just think that
we're
the
getting later
really
here, but maybe it's the wrong time to bring it up. But should we
bring it up? Yeah, it's good. I gotta find a home field to work.
Oh man.
I mean, if you guys want to weigh in quickly, you can. But I mean, it's.
You want to touch it first, Jeff? You go for it. I've said enough on this, but.
Sure.
It's a disaster,
bananas.
Right?
I think it's crazy. I think it's short-sighted. I think it's just the words. I mean, I know people take exception to thinly veiled threats. I don't know if it's as aggressive as that. It sounds like it a little bit, but it's just like there's a clause in everything. Like at the end of the video, they go, is Winnipeg an NHL city? You know, they don't say absolutely they are, but of course they are, something like that. And then they add the word but everyone needs to be in, like as if the season ticket holders in Winnipeg haven't given everything. Like the fact that 85% of the season ticket holders, are individual people, and is mind blowing. Like, doesn't Mark Chipman have friends in the business world? Like, go tell them to get off their wallets and purchase tickets. Don't tell the fans who have been maxing out their credit cards for the last decade that they need to do more, and the Jets will stay here forever. That marketing, that has to be the worst marketing plan ever. How did we get from selling out the team's tickets in like 15 minutes to like pretending we're in 96 again? Like, this team's on the cusp of moving. Like, is there not a happy medium in there? Like, get rid of the but and say everyone needs to be involved. Join us. Like, it's absolutely crazy. And the bananas part about it all is that you looked at this thing for months. You look at these scripts for months. This isn't like a thing you deal with in 2 weeks. And talk about the timing. Do it in January when this team's in first place, not when they're clawing for a playoff spot. That came out before the Jets had even clinched. Yeah. If Minnesota should have won the other night because they needed to, they would have come into tonight's game on the brink of not making the playoffs.
Yeah, Nashville won
Like,
tonight.
it's absolutely incredible, man. And it just speaks to this organization and how tone deaf they are. It took them, 10 years to get the basic lighting system on the thing. Like, they took advantage of these people for a decade. And now they Mark Chipman, whose evaluation of the Winnipeg Jets is pretty much doubled. It has his hand out begging for fans to come out to games. It's absolutely pathetic. And the other part is, handle your business in the locker room. This is one of the least likable teams in the NHL. No one's in the community. Nobody's doing anything. Like, it absolutely blows my mind that you have a Winnipeg Blue Bombers organization who does everything for the fans. Who actually, you know what Bomber season ticket holders get? Bomber season ticket holders get a handwritten letter 48 hours after they sign up for season tickets. They get invited to events throughout the entire year, including like a pancake breakfast at training camp and stuff like that. They get a postcard like thing that's set up like a jersey with your last name on it. Like, you want to get fans to come, show them that you give a shit. Like, it's absolutely incredible that they did this. And I wasn't going to go off like this, but it's been bothering me for so long that it's absolutely bananas. Like, Mark Chipman, like, we're not like when Blake Wheeler used to say stuff like, we're all in the same situation in the pandemic. No, we're not. We're not. We're not all the same. We're not even close. And like how do you go from I know I'm going on now here, but how do you go from releasing a story about how purchasing Portage Place? You already have a lockdown on the entire downtown area, and now you want to purchase Portage Place, and you're asking that, and now you're talking about how you need fans and that if they'll be here forever as long as you show up. Give them a reason to show up. Give them a reason. It's absolutely bananas here. And like, in this team, it's just like, how tone deaf can you possibly get? Mark Chipman doesn't even talk to the fans. He doesn't talk to the media. He doesn't, he hides there. The arrogance of this organization is beyond me, and it hit an absolute boiling point with this marketing strategy. And I'm telling you right now, people would get fired if they had this kind of marketing strategy in other markets. It's absolutely bananas. I'm done. We're at 101.48.
That's a mic drop there.
I get a chance here.
Yeah, go ahead.
You can have a chance, but
why do I have to tone it down too?
You don't have to. You do whatever you want.
Right.
But
you want me to be a little more concise and short and whatever? I thought Hammer just nailed it out of the park there. That thing was a home run in whatever the worst ballpark is in the league for home runs. Like, that thing was out of the park. But no, I think. I talked to a guy that used to work for the Bombers yesterday, and the thing that was interesting to me is that every Thursday, all their season ticket reps would stop what they're doing at the end of the day for 30 minutes and call up 5 people on their list and just thank them for being a season ticket holder and ask them what they're doing.
That's everything. The Bombers flew down 50 people the day of the Grey Cup to go to the game.
I got you. Hold on.
Anyway, sorry. I'm done. You're right. I'll even mute myself.
My email box is full. First of all, I'm not trying to yell because my wife's sleeping next, so that's the reason why I'm not as fired up as I was yesterday about this. But the thing that gets me was that there are enough fans in my email inbox and my DMs on Twitter that can't even get a call back from their customers or from their season ticket rep. They can't get a call. It was told to me yesterday by somebody that I won't say where they work. But you might be able to guess that this team has such a bad customer service staff because they haven't had to do any customer service for the last decade, right? So they just don't know what to do. They're in such a bad shape right now because of who works there and the vision that this and ambition that this customer service staff has, that they're in shambles right now. They don't know what to do because they don't have the people in place to actually do customer service. That's how bad it is in there right now. And so you look at it and you've taken from the fans and you've expected everything in return, and 85%, that number is insane. I agree with Jeff. You've had 85% of your season ticket base be fans propping this team up the whole time. Well, you've literally pissed on local businesses. You name one local business inside Canada Life Center and then go down the street to IG Field and look at all the local businesses in IG Field. It's night and day. Meanwhile, you have an owner who, I agree, he sits up atop the ivory tower. He only comes down to the fifth floor of Canada Life Center. He goes into his little office in the middle of the press boxes there. He invites his rich friends in there, and that's the only time you see him. And the only time you see him with any sort of emotion is when he throws the door and slams the door when the team's lost a bad game. That's the only time you see him. He doesn't talk to anybody. He doesn't talk to anybody else in press row. He curries zero favor with the fan base. Meanwhile, you go down the street to IG Field and you see before a game Wade Miller out at the tailgates talking to the fans. Like Wade Miller, he has his faults, but at least he knows how to be, and he's not even the owner of the team, he's just the CEO. But he knows how to run an organization where the fans, when they come on a game day or even not on a game day, feel welcome, feel a part of the team, feel like they actually a part of winning a Grey Cup or a Stanley Cup in the case of the Jets. The Jets don't feel that way. It's interesting, right? Like, I mean, we leave the Jets games, 3 hours after they end, 2 hours after they end. Some nights there's not a fan around really at that point. You go to the Bombers game, we leave the Bombers game, there's still people out there tailgating. And like, I get it, it's apples and oranges, right? But this team has done so little to make it inviting inside that arena. I just don't get where they need to go and what they need to do. But this is a team that you're on the road. I don't know if they're on the road with you guys right now, but they send a lot of their, front office guys out there to check out the people that are in charge of the game day experience and people that are in charge of the fan experience and customer service, and all those people sit in the press box and they look at all the different things that these other teams do. And then you come back and you watch what they do at a Jets game. You're like, what are these guys watching? Like they're blind. Like I that's the other part I don't understand, is that they have the people that are supposed to make the decisions on changing things in the arena. And you go to a Dallas or you go to Seattle or you go to a Vegas and you see all the local flavor that they put into their game days. And then you come to Winnipeg and what's the local flavor? You get one guy who sits there and screams at you every 10 seconds before the game to tell a Jets fan that they need to get loud, like an intelligent
far the most boring
Jets
game day experience in the NHL.
It's horrible. It's horrible. It's the worst. Like you go down to Florida and they don't have people telling people to get loud there, and they have a half arena. But you have like three people that sit there and scream in your face before the game, to try and get you to get excited for a game. These fans don't want to be excited. They don't need that to be excited. They need the on ice product to be exciting to watch the game, because they're smart enough to know what a good team and a bad team looks like. And so when you have 3,000 fans that you've lost over the past 2 years, it's not because, part of it's because of the economic situation. I get that. I mean, part of it is apathy, and people don't give a shit about the Jets as much as they used to. Like, that's what it is. You have a team down the road too in the Bombers, where if you're going to use your discretionary income, why wouldn't you go to a Bomber game? Like, the Bomber games are fun. Like, I would rather go to a Bomber game and just sit in the stands and drink beer and do all that than cover. But I would rather sit in the press box at a Jets game than go down, because I mean it's just boring. And so I don't know how else to act, to say it, but like, this team needs to stop thinking that it goes back to the whole idea that they work when we work, or they get paid when we work, or whatever they work. The thing that Shipman said when he wouldn't pay, when every other team across the NHL was paying their staff when the pandemic hit for the last few games or whatever, and Shipman dug in and wouldn't do it. Like, that's the problem. The problem is that it gets so cheap around here that they won't want to invest in the fans. They think that the on ice, like the game itself, hockey itself, should be the thing that draws people in. But they're finding out now that they're missing 1,500 people a night because nothing it's not just that anymore. Because the team has sucked for the last little while, and it was really bad last year. And yeah, they've got into the playoffs this year, but they played really bad for a good 2 months, too, on top of that. And it's easier now for people to look past, because there's nothing else to look forward to, right? Like, I don't get it, and I don't know. I mean, I'm not saying that this team needs to turn this into like an outdoor stadium with a rum hut or whatever. but they need to figure out ways to make it local, and to make it to what Winnipeggers like. Right, like I don't. When I walk into a Jets game, if there was no jerseys on, I wouldn't know what city I was in. Right, like and I think that's the thing. Like there's a lot of teams that, this isn't Toronto, this isn't Vancouver. They don't have the, maybe the reality is you're not going to get the business community in on it. But part of it would help is trying to get some local in there, so you actually look like you care about the local community and not your few blocks on True North Square and all that. And the other thing is, if that's the reality here, that 85% of the fans have to make up the seat, then do something to make it worth it for the fans. Right now, it's just not worth it.
Exactly.
Anything else before we shift to the home field?
I'm ready for some beers on a patio in a plus 25 Denver. I don't know, maybe, or I'm going to bed. I want to go to bed. I got to get up early tomorrow.
All right.
That's a 45-minute drive then.
In that case, it's time to throw a spotlight on the comments and choose a standout for the Home Field Dig Deeper Award.
Got corporate.
Yeah, it's time. And that award winner this evening is Cranley, who said nobody will ever remember anything that happened in this game. It is a little bit of an exaggeration, but because the next game is game 1 of the Stanley Cup playoffs, Cranley is 100% correct. So there will not be a lot of X's and O's or power play meetings based on what we saw here at Ball Arena. And that is why Cranley is the winner. Thank you, Cranley, for your winning comment. And just like Cranley, Home Field is always going to dig deeper to find the best marketing solution for your company. Find out how at myhomefield.ca. And give me one
We're 2 for 3 for swears here. You missed one of the better comments here. So just like if you swear, we'll make it 3 for 3 on the swear power play here.
Well,
fans want it, Kenny.
It's a family show, buddy, so you can't always give the people what they want.
Kenny letting them down. All right.
All right, the next time, thanks very much for the great attendance throughout the course of this 82-game regular season. Great to see so many people still up listening here. There will be a Stanley Cup playoff preview show. We don't know the timing or the schedule. As mentioned earlier, the Jets will be in the Pacific time zone bracket for the first round or 2 if they remain in it of the Stanley Cup playoffs. We expect it's still nothing confirmed or official, but I would imagine it's more likely they'll play Tuesday than Monday, but we don't know that for sure. And if they're playing the Edmonton Oilers, it could be Monday. So we will get you updated. We will look forward to the Stanley Cup playoffs, and we would like to thank Jeff Hamilton and Scott Billick of the Winnipeg Free Press for their excellent work today and throughout the course of the regular season. The fun time of the year is just around the corner. And as Sean likes to say, and as I support and confirm all of the time, thank you to all the businesses in this community that we've been talking about recently for their tremendous support of this program. That's Vittorio Rossi, that is Trans-Canada Brewing Company, that is the OGs from the Johnston Group, that is Lou Ferlin of Royal LePage Dynamic Realty, that is Cambrian Credit Union, and that is our good friends at Home Field. Thank you for listening.
Easy, Kenny, you're losing it, man. You're losing your temper here. It sounds like you're about to give a wake up.
We will talk to you soon.
You should be like, man, let's get ready. Playoffs next week. Let's go, guys. We're in it. Season's over.
Yeah. It's time to wake up. Time to wake up.
Time to wake up, Kenny.
It's time to wake up. 82 done. The fun just begins. Thanks for watching and listening, everybody.
Swears. All right. Yeah.
Have a fantastic weekend.
The Kenny and Renny Show is brought to you by Home Field, Cambrian Credit Union, Lou Ferlin, Trans-Canada Brewing, Vittorio Rossi, and Johnston Group.